Greetings, fellow scientists. I'd like to welcome you to the Wisconsin Science Festival online field trip, It's Brain Surgery. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're ready to get started. My name is Val from the Wisconsin Science Festival team, and we're so excited to be here today with our special guest, Dr. Day, from the UW-Madison School of Medicine and Public Health and the Carbone Cancer Center for this field trip experience. So how can you participate today? Well, you'll notice that your picture and audio are muted, and that the chat isn't available. But if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, you can use the Q&A feature. As soon as you have a question, go ahead and type it in right away, and we'll use your question. We'll read your question out loud for you during the field trip. This field trip will be recorded, and as always, we ask that you do this and all activities at the Wisconsin Science Festival with a responsible adult. We'd also like to thank all our sponsors and partners that help make the Wisconsin Science Festival possible. You can find out more activities and events during the festival at wisconsinsciencefestival.org. With that, we're ready to get started. Take it away, Dr. Day.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mahua Day, and I'm a neurosurgeon here at UW-Madison, and I operate on brain. I'm a brain surgeon. I grew up in a small town in India, and growing up, I really liked, playing in nature, catching frogs, dissecting them, and then that's how my interest grew in science. And I pursued my high school, and then I did my undergrad, and then I went to medical school. And in medical school, I really fell in love with the brain, because brain pretty much controls everything. It's like the motherboard of your computer, and operating in the brain is very, very cool. I think we really get to see what makes people, how arms move, how we walk, how we talk, and we can see all of that while we're doing surgery on the brain. And I think it's a very fascinating field. I also do research. We study brain tumors. We take brain tumor cells. We study what makes them cancerous and how we can come up with treatment to better treat our patients. So that's just a little bit in a nutshell about me. And I guess I can take questions.
Yeah, so if any of the audience members have questions, you can type them in the Q&A feature, and I'll help pass those to Dr. Day. We have one question so far. How did you know you wanted to be a brain surgeon? Did you see other female brain surgeons when you were growing up, or was this something, what was the kind of the moment where you?
Actually, there aren't that many female neurosurgeons to get, inspired about doing neurosurgery. I wanted to do neurosurgery because I really enjoyed the brain. I enjoyed the neuroanatomy. I really enjoyed how our brain functioned, and how I was always a very inquisitive person. My mom would say I always asked why was my favorite word, and I always wanted to know why things work the way they did work, why we walk the way we walk. And when I started studying neuroscience, it all made sense. And that's what really inspired my interest in neurosurgery. Sometimes you are in a field where there are not a lot of people like you who are doing that, but that's okay. You just have to love what you do. And if you find people that look like you or talk like you are doing it, that's great. If not, then you just be the first one and you do it. So now we're having a lot more women interested in neurosurgery. When I started it, there were a lot few, but I think that's how change happens.
Awesome. We have a bunch of questions rolling in, which is awesome. The first one is, where did you go to medical school? Go ahead.
I went to medical school at Baylor in Houston.
Cool. That question was from Scarlett, so thanks, Scarlett, for asking that. And Cam is interested in wondering if doing surgery on the brain is gross. And Caitlin was wondering how many brain surgeries you did.
well, I lost count how many I did, so quite a few.
Mhm.
I've been doing it for a while now, because 7 years of residency, 5 years practicing. So I've been doing brain surgery for a while. So I've done quite a few. Is it gross? Absolutely not. Brain is the cleanest organ in your body, you know, and it's hard to imagine as a surgeon that I would gross out, but I do gross out very easily. Like, I don't like slimy, sticky things. I don't like saliva. I don't like mucus. Definitely don't want to deal with bowel. So from all of that, brain is very neat and clean, and it is the cleanest organ out there. So no, it's not gross at all.
Cool. To kind of follow up with that, Jack is wondering if the brain looks like it does in the pictures.
Brain is very beautiful. It does look, you know, the cool thing about brain is only in the brain, the arteries are really red and the veins are really kind of bluish. Yeah, you know, it does. I think it's even better than picture in real life.
Cool. I'm wondering how you deal with stereotypes in the field of brain surgery.
No, it's hard. The stereotypes are a problem in every walk of life, not just in brain surgery. You know, people make decisions by the way you look, the way you talk. It's something you always have to overcome, no matter what you do, not just brain surgery. Part of it is educating other people, you know, and educating by doing it. So when people, a lot of people, when I was wanting to do neurosurgery, said, you know, that's not the best field for women. You shouldn't do neurosurgery. You should do something that's more women friendly, like you should do pediatrics. You can argue with those people till cows come home, or you can just pursue and become the neurosurgeon and then say, hey, look, here I am, and it's doable. So I think the best way to fight stereotype is by action, by proving them wrong, by doing where your heart wants to do, and working really hard to get there.
That's really powerful advice. Thank you for that. Another question that we have is, how do you feel when you know you are helping someone have a second chance at life?
It's a very, very gratifying feeling. You know, the best part of being a physician and being a surgeon is to be able to help people when they need it the most. You know, when people are sick, that's when they need someone's helping hand the most, and to be able to be that person and help them. And neurosurgery is almost always, you know, scary. Everybody who thinks of brain surgery, no one takes it lightly, because it's an important thing. So to be able to be that comforting presence and be able to hold their hand through the problem that they're having and help them, it's a very, very gratifying feeling. And I feel that's what keep us going, to because it's a hard job. You know, we have days when no matter how hard we try, things don't work out the way we want to. But to get over those days, there are also days when you really help someone and you remember their faces, how they felt after you helped them.
That's awesome. Thank you. Cheng Yu is wondering what kind of tools you use when you're doing brain surgery.
You know, we use we are very sophisticated, because brain is sophisticated, so we have to be sophisticated. We use navigation, so we know exactly which part of the brain the tumor is growing, so we can go right there. We use electrical mapping, so we can tell which area of the brain is controlling your speech or your movement, so we can avoid those areas. Sometimes we even operate on people while they're awake, so we can monitor their talking while we're operating, so we don't get into areas that can affect their speech. So the technology is really getting better every year, and we're getting much more sophisticated in monitoring various functions of the brain while we're doing the surgery, to avoid any long-term deficit for our patients.
Wow, that sounds incredible. This kind of goes along with that same question, Dr. Day. Julia is wondering, what's the most complicated procedure or surgery that you have done?
You know, every surgery is, a little complicated and special because various areas of the brain are involved in various function we do. So the motor area, which is primarily over here, controls your arm on the other side. The speech area, which is on the left side, controls, how you talk, how you formulate words. So whenever we have tumors growing in these areas, it is more complicated than, say, in an area of the brain that doesn't really, that's more involved in, say, thinking, something that we don't usually see as clearly, like speech or motor function. So the large tumors that are involving these, speech areas or motor areas, they are kind of long surgery, more complicated surgery than, say, tumors that are growing in some of the less eloquent areas of the brain.
Awesome. We have a question that kind of goes along with that as well. Is it fun to do these complicated surgeries? Jack is asking, and also Minx was wondering, does it make you nervous when you're doing these complicated procedures?
So is it fun? Yes, because the amount of information we get from each one of these surgeries is incredible. It's not just we're helping the patient, at the same time in the OR, we're learning so much about the brain and how the brain functions. So it is actually a fun endeavor in learning and advancing our knowledge while helping the patient. Now, do you get nervous? That's why neurosurgery is a 7-year training. It's like any athlete. The more you practice, the longer you're training, the better you get at it. And once you're good at it, then it's fun to play the game. So you have to put in the basic hard work during your residency to really learn the anatomy, to really learn the procedure, to really learn how to do this surgeries well. And once you learn it, then you're like a professional athlete. Every game is a fun because you know how to do it.
Great. You were speaking about kind of being an athlete, and Braylon is wondering, when you're not doing brain surgery, what are kind of your favorite things to do outside of the lab? Do you play sports?
No, I suck at sports. I'm good at neurosurgery, but I'm not that good at sports. I like painting, so when I'm here in town, I love cooking. I like experimenting with food, and I love traveling. So when I'm here, I work most of the time, and then I like to go out, leave the town and go like various places in the world. And I really enjoy scuba diving. So I go to places that are good for diving.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Katina is wondering what advice you'd give to someone who wants to head towards your career.
You just have to work hard, and you have to keep your eye on the goal that you want to be a brain surgeon, and that's all. You can't listen to every advice that tells you can't do something. That's their understanding of what things are. If you want to do it, you just have to persevere. Even if you fail in something, you just have to get up and keep trying and keep your eye on the prize.
Awesome. This one kind of goes right along with that. Leanne is wondering if you have any tips for high school students who want to pursue neurosurgery, and like what types of classes or experiences should they try to be a part of?
No matter what you want to be when you grow up, you should be a wholesome individual. So, and as a high school student, as a college, that's your opportunity to learn widely as much as possible, different things. You don't have to just be one thing, good at one thing. when you match in neurosurgery, we will train you to be a neurosurgeon. We have 7 years to train you to be a neurosurgeon. The more wholesome person you come to us, the better doctor you're going to be. The better doctor you are, the better surgeon you're going to be. While doing that, you know, it's also, I think, helpful if you are involved in labs that are doing, you know, neuro-related research, so you get a understanding of the field as to what is going on in the field per se. It's also good to be in contact with, you know, someone who is doing it, another neurosurgeon, and maybe shadow them once in a while to see what kind of procedures they do and, you know, what kind of lifestyle that they have, and if that's what something you really want to have when you grow up.
It's really great advice, I think, and it translates to lots of different fields. Caitlin and Maria are wondering if you only operate on tumors, or also if your surgeries and procedures could help people with aneurysms, or what are the different scenarios that people might experience that would lead to getting a brain surgery?
So I primarily specialize in brain tumors, so I operate mostly on brain tumors, except when I'm on call for trauma. I also operate on head trauma, head bleed, things like that. But I do have my partners who specialize in aneurysms or vascular surgeries. Even neurosurgery sounds very specialized, but even within neurosurgery, we're very subspecialized. Whatever you do, you kind of do that really well, and you build your skills around it. So even within our department, it's kind of broken up into people who are doing spine, people who are doing aneurysms and vascular neurosurgery, people who are doing tumor surgery, people who are doing pediatric brain surgery. So we're still kind of broken up and separated in that way.
Awesome. There's one kind of follow-up question to that. Evelyn is curious a little bit, if you can describe a little bit more like what a tumor is.
So a tumor is, your brain is made of trillions of cells. If one, and each cell, and our body is made of, you know, many, many trillions of cells. These cells every day are exposed to many different things, radiation, food we're eating, all kinds. And these cells, when they multiply, they can make mistake, and they can accumulate what we call mutation. A mutation is something that can make a cell do things that its older cells that it came from cannot do. And sometimes that gives them the power to continue to grow without any check and balance. When you have that cell that continues to grow without any check or balance, it forms a tumor. It's a lump of cells. Every cell in our body has a check and balance. It only grows so much, and then it doesn't grow anymore, because continuously growing is not helpful for a healthy body. But these tumor cells escape that mechanism of not growing. They don't have any check and balance, so they continue to grow, and then they start taking up room in the normal brain and start destroying normal cells because they're growing too fast. So that's what a tumor is.
Thanks for that clarification. There's a couple students that have questions related to COVID-19. So I'll kind of summarize those. What has changed in your field because of COVID, or do you have to take any extra precautions to kind of minimize risk?
Right, so that has changed for entire medical field. You know, we have to be more careful because we do treat patients with COVID. So we have to put on extra protective gear so we're not exposing ourselves to the viruses if the patient is COVID positive. So before, if we were putting one glove, now we're putting two gloves. Before we were putting one mask, now we're putting two masks. We were using face shields. So in some ways, the surgery for that has become a little more harder, because the more stuff we wear, it wears us down during surgery, the less mobility we have. But it is something we have to do to keep the patient safe and keep everybody who is part of the team safe, so we're not contracting the virus.
Thank you for that. There's two questions, and they both are related to if something goes wrong. So Gerber is wondering if you're ever worried that you might do something wrong and affect that person forever. And there was another question about, do you ever have, do you have personal guilt about if something goes wrong and you were working on a procedure or a brain surgery?
You know, it is surgery. Even with the best of intentions, the best of planning, the best of technology, things can happen that are beyond, you know, people's normal control. It is something that's part of the field. It is the best you can do that you did everything right. And then if still things happen, we help patient get through it. The best way to not have personal guilt or feeling like you did something wrong is to be prepared and not do something wrong. For every single one of these cases that I do, I look through the MRI few days in advance. Many times I plan this surgery in my mind. At least 3-4 times I've done it in my mind before I even touch the patient. So you should, I would go back to my previous analogy of an athlete, right? You come in prepared. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you fight a good fight and you lose it, you know, that's part of the game. But if you just come in unprepared and you lose, that's on you. Same with surgery, you know, you come in prepared, you do all the right thing, and if something bad happens, it is part of the job. But you should never come in unprepared or be the reason why something did not go right.
That's great advice, being prepared. That's important. I have a couple of questions that are similar. Anvika, Paige, and Minx are all kind of asking about medical school. So thinking about what were the educational requirements to get to be a neurosurgeon, and how did you focus on your studies and stay focused on it? And then what was the impact of the financial burden of medical school? So kind of a long question, but all about kind of getting to where you're at.
Right. So, you know, medical school, you have to take pre-med classes. Now I did medical school over 15 years ago now. Things have changed. The criteria and the requirements have changed, but I think you still have to take basic biology, biochemistry, physics. I think now you even have to take sociology, all of those basic pre-med classes. And then you have to take an entrance test called MCAT. And based on how you do in all those courses and your MCAT score, that's when you apply to medical school. What medical schools are looking for, of course, are students that are smart, that are dedicated, but all of you guys are. I mean, you guys study hard, you know, you guys score well on this test. So, but what we're really looking for is good, wholesome people who are going to be good doctors that that your patients can relate to, that they can have a conversation with. The days of when the doctors were like, you know, the paternalistic medicine, they said this is what it is, and then you go, those days are gone. Now patients are looking for more of a humanistic relationship where they can build a relationship with their doctors. Because it, you know, physician and neurosurgery particularly, it's a very intricate relationship you have with your patient. They have to trust you completely for them to let you do what you need to do to make them better. So what medical schools are looking for is really those wholesome people who don't give up, who are persistent, who study hard, and just keep trying. Now, I'm a nerd at heart. I love studying. I love reading. I'm not that much of a, you know, TV watcher or movie watcher, so I don't have that many distractions. And when I was growing up, there was no social media to distract me. I know you guys live in a lot more tougher times than what I grew up in. Like I said, I grew up in a very small town in India. We didn't have internet. We didn't have, you know, we just played with it outside in nature and then studied. So it was a lot easier that way. And financial burden, yes, it is an expensive process. But, you know, if you think about all the bad debts you can accumulate, buying things you don't need, or, you know, in my mind, not that important things that this is an investment that pays off. Investing in your education is not really a bad debt. Now, if it was cheaper, would it be better? Of course. You know, it would be better if it was cheaper. But if it's not, you know, I think of all the investment you can make in your life, investing in your career is the best investment.
Great advice again. I have a couple of questions from Angela, Marin, and Paige. Kind of what does a normal day look like, and how many patients might you see in a normal day? We just have a couple minutes left for a few final questions.
Okay. So, you know, different days are different. So I would say my week looks like on Mondays, I have clinic where I see, you know, anywhere from 5 to 10 patients, depending on, you know, what the day looks like. On Tuesdays are my OR days, whatever clinic patients we come, I operate on Tuesday. As I mentioned, I also do research. So I also keep later half of the week for research because I have a lab. So it also involves writing grants, submitting papers, doing experiments. So later half of the week is kind of saved for that. And then when I'm on call, all of this kind of goes out the window, and then I just need to do whatever I need to do during the call day.
Well, thank you so much. We're probably getting close to our last question or two. So Katina asked, what is one big thing that you've learned throughout your career?
You have to keep trying. You cannot give up. First, you have to find something that you love to do. If what you think is the coolest job in the world, you should do that. And then you just keep at it. If you don't make it the first time, you do it again. You fall 23 times, you get up 24 times.
Fantastic. I'm just scanning the list again of any questions. The one question that kind of has come up a bit is, what are the important kind of character traits, or what kind of personality traits are most important to be successful in your field? And that probably will be our last question that we have time for.
I say just a good human being. There is no stereotype. You cannot believe in the stereotype that you have to be this like strong, this, that. You just have to be a good human being. And everything else will have to fit around that. There is no stereotype.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us at this Wisconsin Science Festival Field Trip Experience with Dr. Day. And thank you, Dr. Day, for taking the time to talk.
Thank you. And it was great
all
pleasure.
these amazing questions. I'm so sorry we didn't get to every single question, but we can probably do some follow-up with your teachers by email or things like that. And a recording of this field trip will likely be available, and we'll follow up with teachers about that as well. Remember that this Wisconsin Science Festival continues with events hosted from organizations across the state of Wisconsin that you can participate in over the next few days. Just check out wisconsinsciencefest.org for more fun science. We'll see you there. Thanks again, Dr. Day.
Thank you.